Story from Timcast.com. Georgia DA puts police on heightened security amid potential midsummer indictment of Trump. Multiple legal experts believe she will follow through with criminal charges, and I think so. But the story was written by Adrian Norman, so I'll throw it to you. What's going on?
What's going on is the continuation of the 5-year now saga we have of the Get Trump Mafia, who are looking at any other way to try to get this guy and stop him from returning back to the White House. I mean, we got the case in New York with
Alvin Bragg.
Alvin Bragg, yeah. We've got the special prosecutor in D.C. who's after him, and now we've got Fannie Willis in Georgia, and I think they're trying to throw a bunch of stuff to the wall and see what sticks.
And the federal indictment now, where they got his Secret Service testifying against them. So we're looking at, was it 3? But it's probably going to be more. We got
at least 3.
Yeah, New York, federal, and Georgia. Yeah. They are going to indict Trump. And then I guess my question for the panel is, do you think Trump gets convicted in any of these jurisdictions?
The Georgia one is over the, I hope,
like interference or whatever
thing.
Yeah, the 2020 election when he was on the phone with state officials saying, "Hey, can you find votes?"
So that is a much, much, much more serious case than this garbage in New York.
Absolutely, they're trying to hit him with RICO charges.
Right.
Wow.
It's pretty serious stuff. And again, it's I mean, if you follow the case at all, it's very clear that he wasn't intent on engaging in any sort of fraud, but they had thought that fraud had occurred because there were so many anomalies and problems that occurred in the election and so many questions that were raised. But obviously, one of Trump's greatest flaws, and this has been the case since he ran for office, is that he's very imprecise and he says things that allow you to easily misinterpret what his actual intent is.
Or intentionally.
Well, yeah.
Pull out of context.
So, in his pursuit for what was really a sort of a righteous cause and saying, hey, we think that there was a mistake that was made with a certain number of votes, find out what's true, what's not. They're misinterpreting the entire tenet of his phone call, his team's investigation, to frame it as though he was trying to rig the outcome of the election when he wasn't. He was simply trying to discover whether or not election fraud had actually occurred.
But I don't think that matters. I think they will make up any reason to go after him. The documents thing, New York, they're going to convict him. I do not see a New York jury acquitting Donald Trump. I don't, and this is going to be in Georgia, but it's probably going to be in a more urban district, I imagine, when they bring him down. I don't know how he's going to, if he's going to try and, make some argument for a different venue in the state or something that's more favorable, which makes no sense. And then you also have the E. Jean Carroll thing where I guess Trump didn't show up. Is that what happened? Were you following that?
No.
All I saw was that people were tweeting Trump's a no-show at the E. Jean Carroll case. She's accusing him of rape from like 50 years ago or something. And yep, they got it in the courts.
I got this. You guys might not agree with this. This might be unpopular, but I do think that he was looking for votes. I mean, I do think that he was trying to look for, I think he was trying to pressure the state to throw the election to him. So that's why I think it's a much more serious case. But I mean, I will plead ignorance that it's not something that I followed very closely. I just know the top lines like everybody else. It just is.
But how do you find votes? What does it even mean? Like in the worst possible interpretation.
I don't know that he had a specific plan for what he was trying to ask of them. I think he was just trying to exert his influence and say, do what you need to do. You're the Secretary of State. Do what you need to do to, do what you need to do. And I don't want to know what it is basically what he was saying. But you're going to find the votes to deliver Georgia to me. That's what I think he was trying to communicate. But you reported this out.
Well, I mean, we have the full transcript of the call, so we know exactly what was said. And again, it's one of those things where Trump is Trump. He says some things that oftentimes can be misinterpreted, and I think that's what happened. And you have liberal media establishments that run with these narratives, and the truth makes it around the world before the lie makes it around the world before the truth has its boots on. And I think there were so many stories that were being pushed through the mainstream media regarding this particular story that framed it in a certain way. It didn't even matter what the truth was at that point.
Yeah.
Get the transcript up?
Yeah. I'm going to try and see if I can. What is this? Trump says, thank you very much. Hello, Brad and Ryan, blah, blah, blah. We're getting 25 to 30,000 people at a rally. We have a number of things. We have at least 2 or 3, anywhere from 250 to 300,000 ballots were dropped mysteriously into the rolls. Much of that had to do with Fulton County, which hasn't been checked. We think that if you check the signatures, a real check of the signatures going back to Fulton County, you'll find at least a couple 100,000 forged signatures of people who have been forged, and we are quite sure that's going to happen. But I mean, that is just Trump's speculation. He was wanting them to go and look for it. So like in that context, I'd say this. If Trump was like, hey, do a signature verification, because I bet those are no good signatures, is that trying to swing an election?
No, but I don't think that he would personally make that phone call, right? Like the president of the United States is calling and saying, hey, we've got this report. Like you would run that through somebody else if that was seriously your goal. It just seems like a personal phone call from the president saying, this is fishy and I want you to act on
but
it.
he's the president. You think he's going to try to swing an election when everything he's doing is recorded and he's in a room full of advisors?
But it's not just that. I mean, what he's saying right here is
Maybe.
over. If let's just remove it from Trump. If an individual says, "I believe there was impropriety here, and I think you should allow us to check for it," is that above board or nefarious?
The problem is that like we could, this would be like how it would go in a courtroom where we would be parsing these words and trying to figure out the literal meaning and discern the intent from actual evidence, which is how you should litigate. But like, really, this is an exercise just right here in mind reading, right? We have no idea, but so it's totally intuitive. But
so let me read you the full quote from Donald Trump, and I'll stress too, I think he's wrong about the fraud narrative. I do think there's issues with, in Time Magazine, they wrote the shadow campaign. You see the article, the shadow campaign to save the election?
Yep.
They wrote what they
crazy.
did and how they did it. It was procedural. It was through government. It was with deals over a year. And it was shutting down entertainment, which resulted in a mass amount of mail-in ballots. Then I think the question is, how do I phrase this? People are saying it's fraud when in reality it may be just like lower standards, meaning ballots came in through mail-in voting and they were just like, this one's probably fine. Yeah. As opposed to in the past, they'd be like, we're going to scrutinize the signature. So this is what Trump said. He says, let me see, I might have to read more because, well, whatever. He says, you're going to find that they are, which is totally illegal, is more illegal for you than it is for them because you know what they did and you're not reporting it. That's criminal. That's a criminal offense and you can't let that happen, blah, blah, blah. He says, and they're removing machinery and they're moving it as fast as they can, both of which are criminal fines, and you can't let it happen. And you are letting it happen. I'm notifying you that you're letting it happen. So look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have because we won the state. And flipping the state is a great testament to our country because this is a testament that they can admit to a mistake or whatever you want to call it. If it was a mistake, I don't know. A lot of people think it wasn't a mistake. It was much more criminal than that. But it's a big problem in Georgia, and it's not a problem that's going away. I mean, it's not a problem that's going away. So this one snippet in context is Trump saying, I believe there was criminal action in your state, and I want you to actually have an investigation of it. And they just said no to him. And he says, look, I'm just saying I want to find 11,000. The context that I see there is, for one, I think Trump pushing the criminal thing was like a heavy-handed threat. Claiming fraud was to try and scare them into actually doing it. Mm-hmm. But Trump is basically saying to them, I believe there are ballots with bad signatures. I believe that if you investigate, you will see hundreds of thousands, and I just need to find 11,780 of them to win.
I mean, it's possible that it's both of what we're describing because he could have truly believed that he won the state, and he could have truly believed that there was fraud. But the way he went about, but he also was single-mindedly focused on flipping the state, which he says in the statement, and he's leaning on the Secretary of State in a very totally inappropriate way, saying, in light of all this, do what you need to do to deliver the election to me because I deserve it because I actually won it. I mean,
let's say that
there's no reason to get any more votes than you actually need to win.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a legal standard.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to these lawsuits, one of the big things we found was that you can't actually file a lawsuit unless you can justify just enough votes to actually have won.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an argument that suing for a number that to an extreme degree would be deemed like gratuitous. Mm-hmm. It's like if you file a lawsuit, if you can prove one more vote than you needed to win, you have standing. Mm-hmm. But my point is this. Let me ask you: if you were involved in a competition, mm-hmm. let's call it an origami competition, and then you folded 1,000 paper cranes, and then noticed that a bunch of the paper cranes on the other side you believed looked suspicious. What's the appropriate way to go about checking to make sure your opponents were on the level? If you go to the judges and say, hey, I think those claims are fake, well, by your standard, you're saying that you're putting undue pressure on the judges to allow you to win.
Do I, in this situation, am I somebody who has
You're the reigning
real
champion.
power over the judges, though?
Well, as the reigning champion and the fan favorite, you know,
Right, but
there's a
then-
concern that if you don't win, people are going to be mad.
But he's leaning on somebody who is in his political party, who's part of the political apparatus that he's the head of.
But he has no power over Georgia state election officials.
Well, not
And
directly.
the issue I take with your argument is that if there ever is any impropriety, the only thing you can do is give up and submit to those.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I think that he was doing something inappropriate, and I think that his intent was to basically bully his way into having Georgia delivered to him. I'm not making any
You don't
judgments
think that
about
mind reading is a bad legal standard?
that. What?
You don't think that mind reading is a bad legal standard?
But no, I'm just saying my opinion. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not arguing the case. I'm not litigating.
So the issue is you've made a determination about Georgia. You've then determined that anyone who opposes that determination is doing something nefarious. You see my point?
Well, it seems like you're asking me to take my standard and apply it as a universal standard. And I'm not prepared to do that. Because
What I'm saying is if I don't know and don't have the evidence of an outcome, I would expect certification and confirmation. If a woman goes to the police and says, this man committed a crime against me, I would expect the police to actually do some kind of preliminary investigation.
Right.
Not necessarily condemn the guy or charge him or arrest him, but to be like, we'll look into it. If a politician goes to the police and says that their daughter had been brutally assaulted and raped, and the cops were like, well, I'm not going to do anything about it, and the guy says, look, I'm just asking you to go and investigate the guy, that is not, in my opinion, undue pressure for a politician to get some kind of legal outcome. It's literally what everyone is supposed to do if they feel something bad happened. I think Trump, I don't know what happened in Georgia. I think Trump's fraud narrative is wrong. I think they explained exactly how they won with the shadow campaign, changing procedural rules. Trump's argument here is that they were lax on signature verification, and that if they looked into it, they would probably find hundreds of thousands. I don't know if that's true or not. It's immaterial. The issue is they didn't actually check. And the only way you'd actually seek to rectify a problem like that is to go to them and say, do it.
yeah.
So my issue is, while I disagree with Trump, I don't see any other way to seek remedy other than asking someone to do a verification of it.
Well, this is obviously not a hill I'm prepared to die on, but I would say that what you guys are saying is totally fair. I think that this is the basis for a case because, if it's as you say and it's all on the up and up, then that's going to be the defense's position. And if it is the case that he was trying to sway the election inappropriately, that's a serious offense. I'm just saying that it's a serious case, unlike, for example, Stormy Daniels, which is totally frivolous.
Well, let me ask you this: what if they do go back and find? Actually, we found 12,000 mismatched signatures. Would you then think Trump was acting inappropriately if they confirmed that he was right?
It would definitely change the context of my thinking about
But
this.
they didn't actually go back and take Trump's request seriously. So then,
We'll never know.
but then, so how could you have a negative view if they didn't do anything? You know what I mean? Like if they went back and said Trump was wrong, then I'd agree with you. I'd be like, wow, Trump was totally wrong. So Trump's argument here was mismatched signatures. And it's like, well, I don't know, maybe they didn't check. I mean, the fraud stuff, I certainly think is wrong. That was weird. That was like Dominion and stuff, and the CIA and all that was out of the question.
Yeah.
But arguing about lax signature verification policies, something totally different.
Yeah. So your point is, since it didn't amount to anything, then there's no real. It's not. It's like an.
Well,
attempted,
it's like, look, if you have two people who are standing before a judge and one's saying X and one's saying Y, I think it's inappropriate to be like, how dare you ask that question, person A, when a judge should be like, okay, show me your evidence. And then the person will be like, here's a list of things I think justifies my claim. And the judge should then be like, person B, do you have a counterclaim to refute this? And then if investigation, it's like, if there's probable cause, then a court should be like, okay, we're going to grant a signature verification request to see if these claims are accurate.
I mean, it's sort of like, okay, to take an extreme example, if you're an elected official and you went to somebody and you're like, listen, it seems like you might need help with your daughter's private school education, and like, is that of interest to you? And oh, by the way, I'm looking for this particular favor, and you're saying everything short of, directly offering a bribe. You could have the same litigation around whether this was entirely, maybe he was just trying to help out her the person's daughter who was going to private school, and it would come down to this mind reading thing, or you could look at the totality of the circumstances and say this looks a lot like a bribe.
But I think that situation, it's easier to make a quid pro quo, right? Because Trump doesn't say specifically, I could do this thing for you.
Yeah, he just said, hey, I think this thing happened. Will you check? And they said, no. And then he was like, are you kidding me? And they're like, no, go away.
Right.
And then your attitude is like, how dare Trump ask for a remedy to a perceived problem? If someone, so there's a few questions around this. I mean, if we're dealing with matters of public interest, then I don't think the Fourth Amendment plays a role. If the government is involved in something, then the government has a right to publish to the people the results of a search. I don't see how it makes sense that, I'll put it this way. If someone came to me, if someone to the cops and said, Tim Pool stole my spoons, the cops would be like, we'll talk to him and we'll see what's going on. And then if they can't get any probable cause to get a warrant, too bad, so sad, have a nice day. And that's it. However, if it's a group of police officers are carrying a bunch of spoons, and then one person says, they stole my spoons, and another person says, actually, they didn't, you're lying. And then a person calls the police chief and says, just look in the police locker room, and if the spoons are there, that proves it. I don't see that as undoing. Like, if a politician did it, it doesn't matter. If the fact is, we're dealing with an election. The smartest thing in the world to do would be for Georgia to be like, you know what, Trump, so that we can throw out all confusion, we absolutely will do the check and prove to you you're wrong. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.